Erev Tov, everyone. Erev Tov. It is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora on daylight savings time. Yeah, go figure. Yeah. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. Yep, Zeyde Story Corner. Good to have you all here this evening. And let's see who we have in the chat room. We have Donald, we have Veronica, we have Marshall, and those watching in the background. Yeah, we have people watching in the background, so more to come as usual. So we were not on last week. No, we were not. How come? Well, there are certain times that we know that it just doesn't make sense to do a show because there is too much going on outside and there's just too much noise and stuff like that, like 4th of July. With all the fireworks and everything, that it just distracts from the show. And in fact, a lot of times you can't even hear the show because of everything going on. Same thing last Monday on October 31st. Of course, a lot of noise, a lot of fireworks and stuff like that. So we didn't have a show last week. So anyway, so we are back. Yes, we are back. Yes, indeed. So with more stories from the Sephardic world. And so we should probably get you onto your cam. If you don't mind, I don't mind at all. Let's get you onto your camera. And then we can start the stories. There we go. Okay, so let's get these stories up here. And let's start with the first story for tonight, which is called The Pregnant King. I did not think that was possible. Well, I guess we're going to find out. I guess we are. Okay, let us find out about this pregnant king, such as it is. Okay, so once there was a king who had weak eyes. Their condition worsened from day to day, and he kept calling in the very best physicians to be found in his city. Well, that makes sense. Yes, it does. Well, one day, a new physician arrived in town and was soon summoned to the royal court. The physician examined the king and noticed that he kept touching his eyes with his hands. At the end of the examination, the physician addressed the king. "Your Majesty, I have to tell you something bizarre. You're pregnant." The king, understandably, was astonished. "What are you saying? Is that possible?" "Your Majesty," replied the physician, "if I, a medical doctor, say so, you must believe me. In another 9 months, you will give birth." Well, the physician went away. The king forgot all about his weak eyes. He started watching his belly and touching it to check it was starting to swell. After 9 months had passed, the king, expecting to give birth any day, summoned the physician again. "How can I be pregnant? If I were, I should have given birth already." The physician examined him again. "Your Majesty, 9 months ago you summoned me to heal your eyes. I told you then that you were pregnant so that you would think about your belly and stop thinking about your weak eyes. This made you stop touching them all the time and gave them a chance to heal. And it worked. Aren't they healthy now?" The king understood the physician's good intentions. He was so grateful, he appointed him his court physician. A pregnant king. Can you imagine such a thing? No, I can't. I can't imagine such a thing. Well, even nowadays, well, let's not get into that. Let's just go on with the next story, shall we? Okay, let us do that. Okay, there's a few short ones this week, and then a really good one. Okay, this story is called "The Rich Man and His Two Sons." Kind of like you. You had two sons. Yes, I do have two sons. And they are Yehoshua and Noson. Well, very good. Okay, and they are just young little pishers? No, no, no. They are both in their 40s now. So you are an old man. Oh, look who's talking about being an old man. Well, let's just go on with the story, shall we? Okay, let's do that. Let's just forget about that and let's go on and read about the rich man and his two sons. Hey, that's my line. I know it's your line. I was just reminding you. Okay, let us go on. Once there was a very rich man, honored and well respected among his people. He had two sons. The sons grew up, but they still lived with their father, not working for a living. One fine day, the father summoned his sons. "My dearest sons," he told them, "even though I am rich enough to provide for you and even for your children after you, work is essential for man. It amuses him and satisfies him and keeps him from being bored. For idleness is the mother of all sins." Hey, you know, that reminds me of the sermon that you did on Shabbat. What was that? Well, there was that one line in there. You said it was the mother of invention. And then you tried to make a joke. You said, "No, not the band." Yeah, I know it didn't go over very well, did it? No, it did not. Now, if I had delivered that line, you betcha people would have laughed. Okay, so he said the mother of invention. I'm not talking about Frank Zappa either. So, see, I told you. Okay, let's just go on with the story, shall we? Okay, so, for idleness is the mother of all sins. That is why I am giving each of you this sum of money. Go out and engage in whatever business you wish. I will cover all your expenses. The money I am giving you now and all your profits will remain untouched, so that the principal increases from day to day. There is one thing I require of you, however. Once a week, you must give me a report on what you did and how much you made." The sons respected their father and were always careful to comply with his wishes. This time, too, they went around the city looking for some business that would allow them to make a report each week as their father had asked. They found nothing better suited to this than dealing in fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. This way, they would be able to provide to their father with a weekly reckoning. And so it was. The first week, he called his elder son and asked, "What did you do?" The son told his father about the business and that his profit came to a certain sum. At once the father gave his son that very amount over again. He did this the same with the younger son. In this fashion, they reported to their father every week. One week, they purchased their inventory of vegetables for a fair price. But after they had already brought their produce, other suppliers brought large quantities of vegetables to the market, and the price fell. Simple economics, huh? Yeah, simple economics. Supply and demand. You got it. Okay, so anyway, we're getting an economics lesson here tonight. Okay, so anyway, as a result, they lost a lot of money. On Friday, as was the custom, their father asked his elder son about his dealings during the week. The son told him everything that had happened and that he had lost a certain amount. At once, the father asked him to hand over the amount he had lost. Without a murmur, the son gave his father the required sum. Then it was the second son's turn. "And what did you do this week?" his father asked. "This week was not as good as last week," replied the son, but said no more. "How much did you make last week?" asked the father. "I made such and such a sum of money." At once the father gave the son the amount of his profit from the previous week. This interchange took place in the presence of the elder son, who was unable to restrain himself. "But father, he lost just as much as I did, yet you gave him money and took money from me? I don't understand this at all." "You're right," said the father. "Your brother did not say in so many words that he had lost. He merely hinted, stating that he did better last week. You must learn never to open your mouth to give an unfavorable report, to say that you lost or that things weren't so good, and the like. Always open your mouth with a good report, and good tidings will come to you. You see," he continued, "this world is like a mirror. Laugh, and it will laugh with you. But cry, and it will cry back at you. If you are always cheerful, everyone around you will be cheerful too." What a good lesson, huh? Okay, that was a cute story. So we're going to do some folktales now. This one is okay, so I don't want anybody complaining to me about this story. I did not write it. I am simply telling it. So, we got that all in the way now. Okay, so this story is called Noah's Daughter. The Tzaddik, Noah, had 3 sons and only one daughter, who was renowned for her beauty, wisdom, and goodness. There was none like her in all the world. It was hardly surprising that young men streamed to Noah from all corners of the world, asking for her hand in marriage. One day, as the Tzaddik Noah stood at the entrance of his home, he saw a handsome young man approaching from the east, riding a white mare. The man jumped down from his mare and said, "Noah, O righteous and blameless man, I have heard much about your beautiful, wise, and good daughter. I am asking for her hand." "Tell me, my son," the Tzaddik asked him, "have you planted yourself a vineyard yet?" When the young man was silent, Noah went on, "It is not the custom of our community to marry one's daughter to someone who has not yet planted a vineyard. Go, plant a vineyard, and then come back here and we'll discuss the matter further. The young man mounted his white mare and returned to the east, the Tzaddik's words engraved on his heart. One day, as the Tzaddik Noach stood at the entrance of his house, he saw a handsome man approaching from the west, riding a black mare. The young man jumped down from his mare and said, "Noach, O righteous and blameless man, I have heard much about your beautiful, wise, and good daughter. I would like to marry her." "Tell me, my son," the Tzaddik asked him, "have you planted yourself a vineyard yet?" "The vineyard is planted," replied the young man. The Tzaddik continued, "Tell me, my son, have you built yourself a house yet?" When the young man was silent, Noach went on, "It is not the custom of our community to marry one's daughter to someone who has no roof over his head. Go, build a house, then come back here and we'll discuss the matter further." The young man mounted his black mare and returned to the west, the Tzaddik's words engraved on his heart. One day, as the Tzaddik Noach stood at the entrance of his home, he saw a handsome young man approaching from the south, riding a brown mare. The young man jumped down from it and said, "Noach, O righteous and blameless man, I have heard much about your beautiful, wise, and good daughter. I would like to be the smallest and most inconsequential member of your family." "Tell me, my son," the Tzaddik asked, "have you planted yourself a vineyard?" "Yes, O righteous one," replied the young man, "the vineyard is planted." The Tzaddik continued, "Tell me, my son, have you built yourself a house yet?" "Yes, O righteous one," replied the young man, "the house is built." Noach was delighted with the young man and gave him his daughter in marriage. The rejoicing was great and went on for 7 days and 7 nights. On the 8th day, the young man seated his bride on his brown mare and returned with her to his home in the south. One day, as Tzaddik Noach stood at the entrance of his house, the young man on the white mare came riding from the east and announced, "The vineyard is now planted and the house is built." Noach was extremely sorry that he had no daughter and could not keep his promise. Just then, however, he observed that the ass outside the tent had turned into a beautiful, strong maiden. At once, he understood this was a sign from heaven, for God does not want the righteous to suffer. He gave the girl to the young man as his bride. The rejoicing went on for 7 days and 7 nights. On the 8th day, the young man seated his bride on his white mare and returned with her to his home in the east. One day, as the Tzaddik Noach stood at the entrance of his house, the young man on the black mare came riding from the west. He had following news to relate. The vineyard is planted, and the house is built. Noach was extremely sorry that he had no daughter and could not keep his promise. Just then, however, he observed that the dog outside the house had turned into a beautiful, strong maiden. At once, he understood that this was a sign from heaven, for God does not want the righteous to suffer. He gave the girl to the young man as his bride. The rejoicing went on for 7 days and 7 nights. On the 8th day, the young man seated his bride on his black mare and returned with her to his home in the west. And from that time on until the present day, and I don't want any letters about this, there are 3 types of women. One is silly, lazy, and stubborn, like an ass, whose portion is the rod. Another is sneaky, angry, and loud like the dog, whose portion is the whip. But happy is the man whom God has blessed with an intelligent, quiet, and industrious wife, for she is the true and appropriate mate for a righteous man. And again, no letters. Okay, very good. We go on to the next story. Okay, this one is a little bit strange. I mean, I've had to read this a couple of times, and I still find it a little odd. Let's see what you think of it, eh? Okay. This one is called The Angel Who Descended to Put the World in Order. This is pretty appropriate considering we just read about the Noach, and we are going to this week we'll be reading the Sodom and Gomorrah. So this is a good story to follow up with that. Okay, so God was angry about what was going on down below. People were crazy, wicked, and cruel. Everything you can name. He was very angry. He wanted to send someone to fix things up. An angel came to him, and he told him, "Go down there and see what's going on. Put some order into that mess." He must be talking about today. Now, we don't want to get into that. I'm just saying, I know what you're saying. Let's just go on with the story, shall we? Okay, but tomorrow's election day. You know that. Yeah, I know that. So anyway, let's go on with the craziness in the world. Yes, let's go on. I thought we weren't going to talk about today. We're not. We're talking about the story. Okay, we go on with the story. Okay. The angel went down in the guise of an ordinary person. He went down and entered a commercial building and rented an office and became a rug merchant. He began by renting a gorgeous office, everything deluxe. Probably had a coffee, what do you call it, an espresso machine. Probably did. But we won't know because it's not in the story. I'm just saying, yeah, I know. So let's go on with the story. Okay, so anyway, everything was deluxe. Everyone came to offer him good wishes. "How can we help you?" "I'll manage on my own, thank you," he said. One day he said, "Let's go visit the other neighbor. Let's go visit and drink a cup of coffee with him." So him and his assistant went to visit the third neighbor. They went in, and he greeted them warmly, coffee and cookies. He showed them great honor, and they chatted for about an hour. He had 2 candlesticks on the sideboard. When the angel left, he put them in his pocket. "What are you doing?" his companion said to him. "The host was very cordial with us, and you're stealing his candlesticks." "Keep quiet." Then they went to another neighbor. He didn't receive them cordially, not at all nicely. They sat and drank coffee and quickly left. On their way out, the angel put the candlesticks down there. "What are you doing?" asked his companion. "Have you no sense? The fellow who treated us well, his candlesticks you took, and this fellow who wasn't nice to us, you gave him the candlesticks." They talked and talked on the way. The angel was looking for a certain address. He saw a woman with 2 children, an infant and a child of about 3 or 4, next to the bridge. He said to the woman, "Let me have the child to show us the address." He gave her a few coins, and the child came with them. At the other end of the bridge, the angel took the child and hurled him into the water. "Have you gone mad?" said the man. "The child and the mother did you a favor, and you threw him into the water." "It will be all right," he answered. "I'll explain all later." They kept on walking. "Come, I'll take you to a cave." They saw lots of lamps burning there. "These are the souls of everyone," he said. "One burns more, and one burns high, and one burns low. This belongs to the neighbor, and this the other one's." "What is mine?" he asked. "Here it is," the angel said. "It's about to go out." "I'll add oil." "No, it's only up to here your soul." "Oi, why?" said the man. Then they left the cave. "Come," the angel said to him, "now I want to tell you that the place where I took the candlesticks, he was a good man. He was a righteous man. He bought the candlesticks from a thief, and once they were stolen from, the one they were stolen from used to curse all the time, and the curses were setting on the good man. The other man is wicked. I gave him the candlesticks so the curses would fall on him." "Well, what about the boy you threw in the water?" "If he had grown up, this boy would have been an enemy of the state, a robber, a liar, a murderer, all the evil things in the world. It was better that he die before he could grow up to this. And you have completed your allotted time. A few more days, and you will die." He bid him farewell and disappeared. I told you this was kind of an odd story. I'm not really sure what to make of it. It's a little strange, but it's in the book, so we read it. Okay. We go on to the next story. There's a lot of commentary on this one. Yes, there is. And there is scrolling and scrolling to get to the next story. And we Boy, that is a lot of commentary. Yeah, it is. So, I think the commentary is about 10 times as long as the story. Yes, it is. Okay, so the next story is called Satan's Son. And we are going to read about Satan's son when we come back for our break. So, everyone, please stay tuned. We will be back in 6.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as we promised. Okay, let us go on to our next story. The Satan's Son. Okay. Once, Satan was standing before the throne of the Creator with a request. He would like to be released from his duties for a year so he could get married. The Holy One, blessed is He, why do you need such a long vacation? Who will perform the task of carrying people's souls when their hour arrives? Satan said, That is true, Master of the universe, but I have grown tired of killing them. Make someone else your agent. Appoint some other man or angel or devil in my place. I want to rest from my exhausting labor. And what will you do with the woman you marry? O Master of the universe, I beg of you not to ask too many questions. Is it not written in one of the books? Let us eat, for tomorrow we die. Listen, Satan, God warned him. When you decide to return to heaven, you will return alone, because here in heaven there is no place for the children of the earth. I will deal with that when the time comes, replied Satan. So, Satan descended to the earth in the semblance of a handsome and elegantly dressed young man. He looked like a prince. Straight away he found a young woman whose face shone like the moon, with dark eyes and a rosy complexion. Satan went to her parents' house to ask for their daughter's hand. When the girl, whose name was Hapachala, boy, that is a name, isn't it? Yeah, it is, saw such a handsome young man dressed like a prince, a paragon of gallantry, she fell in love with him at first sight. To make a long story short, too late, huh? Yeah, too late. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, so to make a long story short, they were married, set up housekeeping, and lived together as husband and wife, happy and pleased with each other at the beginning. The woman never suspected whom she had married. After the first year, a son was born who resembled them very much. Handsome, smart, clever. The infant grew up and developed rapidly. His mother was filled with pride at the sight of him. Satan knew he had to return to heaven to fulfill his duty and job, carrying off the souls of human beings. But at the end of the first year of leave, he asked God to extend it. And the Holy One, blessed is He, consented. Thus a year passed, and another, until little Satanico reached his 18th year. One day Satanico told his father that the time had come for him to learn a trade, so he could support himself. Replied his father, Satan, you don't have to learn any trade or anything. Before you learn a trade, however, why don't you ask me who I am, your father? Satanico, whose father doted on him, didn't know what to ask, so he said, All right, father, dear, who are you then? My son, Satan replied, you should know that I am none other than Satan himself, and that I fell in love with your mother and married her. But from now on, no, I can no longer bear her pettishness and tantrums, which aggravate me day and night. I don't want any letters on this. So I have decided to return to heaven and rid myself of that witch, your mother, whom I can no longer endure. Satanico who knew that about his mother, said, All right, but what will become of me? You have nothing to fear, answered Satan. I will teach you a profession that will allow you to earn your bread with dignity and wealth. I am going to make you into a physician. Satanico, a physician? How? Without studying and receiving a doctor's diploma? Who will believe that I am a physician? Are you making fun of me? The Satan said, Listen, my son, don't be so hasty. Since everyone says about me that hastiness is from Satan, pay attention and listen so you may become wise. You know that I, and no one else, am the one who carries away people's souls. Now I will reveal my secret. When a person's time to die has arrived, I come and take his soul. No one can see me except you. If you see me standing at the sick person's head, know that no remedy or medicine can save him. He must die. But if you see me standing at the patient's feet, he is going to live. All the physician's medications and treatments are worth absolutely nothing. Now, my son, take advantage of this secret and avail yourself of it. You will certainly see that you will prosper in everything that you do. And, he added, may it be in a propitious hour, my dear son. Know that I am going to disappear from here because of your mother, the witch, whom I can stand no longer. May her name be blotted out. If she asks about me, answer that you no longer see and recognize me. Farewell. And with this, Satan vanished before the eyes of his son, who stood there in a daze. After a few minutes, he came to and began to understand what had happened to him. He had been left an orphan with a father who had vanished and a mother who was a witch and an enchantress. Enchantress. Boy, that's a hard word. Yeah. Obviously. Enchantress. Enchantress. Okay, so we got it. She's a witch. Anyway, above all, he understood that his father had bequeathed him a profession he was unfamiliar with and knew nothing about how to practice. He had no choice but to pluck up his courage. So he told himself, physician or not, darkness of darkness, heaven help us. And he did indeed acquire a reputation as a physician. In his heart, though, he told himself, I am a physician, someone who kills off the healthy. But it was his good fortune that his father, Satan, helped him, so everyone came to him and was quick to summon him to attend those critically ill with serious diseases. When he arrived at the house of a patient who was more dead than alive, the first thing he did was to check where his father was standing. If he saw him at the foot of the patient's bed, he would not nod his head, as if considering the case, and then would whisper to his father, Welcome, Father, and thank you. After that, he would scribble a prescription for pure water and some medical powder or another, and tell the family that the patient would recover soon. From patient to patient, Satanico gained renown as the best physician of his age. One day, the king's son took to his bed with a serious ailment. All the physicians said there was no hope and that the prince was sure to die, even though they could not discover the cause of his illness. In their despair, they summoned Santanico. Perhaps he could save the prince. When he arrived, he saw to his distress that his father, Satan, was standing at the patient's head. Said Santanico to his father, Father, move to the patient's feet or leave the room. No, my son, I cannot do that, replied his father. The prince is going to die, for that is my wish. Santanico found himself in deep water. If the prince died, so would he. So he turned to his father again. For God's sakes, go away. Otherwise you are condemning me to certain death. Is that what you want, for me to die young? It is very painful and distressing to me to see you die, my dear son, replied Satan. But this one's time to die has come, and I must take him with me. When Santanico realized that his father was resolved to take the prince with him, he went right up to his father and whispered in his ear, Listen, Father, if you don't go away and leave the prince alive, your wife is standing outside, and I will go and call her right in. When the Sultan heard this, he jumped out the window and ran away, panicked and stricken. And in this way, the prince saved from certain death, and Santanico saved his own life too. It's just what King Solomon, the wisest of men, said, 1 in 1,000 women is never found. For whatever that means. Okay. And as I said before, no letters. I only read them. Okay, so lots more commentary on this one. And more commentary. And now we come to the notes. And now we come to our last story of the evening. I think we go over a little few minutes this time, but it's a good story. I think you like it. The Astrologer King and the Rabbi. Once there was a great king who loved truth and pursued justice. He ruled over his country with love and mercy. His people loved him greatly, for they esteemed his goodness of heart and beneficent deeds. His wife was radiant as the sun and as clear as the moon, and he loved her with all his heart. The king tended to the affairs of his people and kingdom with great devotion, but he also loved wisdom and knowledge. He was particularly fond of astronomy and astrology. Night after night he would sit up to observe the stars, hoping to solve the riddles of the past and unveil the secrets of the future. One day, the king was seized with curiosity to find a man who had been born on the same day and hour as himself. He spent many sleepless nights in the observatory he had built in his palace, searching and inquiring to find an answer to his question. Eventually, his quest led him to a famous rabbi who lived in one of the remote cities of his kingdom. This was the man who had been born on the very same day, at the very same hour as the king. The discovery astonished him. How could it be that it was a Jew, a rabbi, who had the merit of being born under the same star as the great king, the ruler of a large and extensive kingdom? But if fate had decreed, the king told himself, let me see this rabbi with my own eyes, converse with him face to face, see if he is really worthy of having been born in the same hour as I. The king summoned his ministers. I have decided to go on a long tour of my kingdom, he told them, and listen to my people's heartfelt desires. I leave you in charge of the kingdom during my absence. I will be traveling incognito. No one must know that I have gone away. Disguising himself as a merchant, the king traveled through towns and villages. He crossed streams and forded rivers. After journeying for many days, he reached the city where the rabbi lived. As he had seen in his stars, passers-by showed him the rabbi's house. He knocked on the door. The rabbi's wife opened it. What can I do for you, sir? She asked cordially. I would like to see the rabbi, replied the king. I'm sorry, the rabbi isn't home just now, replied his wife, but he will come back for lunch. If you wish, come inside and sit and wait for him. Or you can go elsewhere and come back at noon, whichever you prefer. I'll wait for him, said the king, since I am a stranger in this town. The rabbi took a chair into the garden. The king sat down and waited for the rabbi's return. Precisely at noon, the gate opened and the rabbi entered. When he saw the stranger sitting in the garden, he came over to him. His expression altered at once. Wide-eyed, he bowed to his guest. Your Majesty, how have I merited to have you come to my house? Speak your wish, and I will fulfill it. Don't call me your Majesty. I'm no king. I am a simple person like yourself. Any resemblance you find between me and the king is misleading. Do not say you are a simple person, your Majesty. Your identity is clear as the sun at noon. Please enter my house so I can honor you as befits a king. This time the king kept silent. He stood up and entered the rabbi's house, where he enjoyed a fine meal. Afterwards he asked the rabbi what day he was born on and about his studies and work. The king discussed science and politics with the rabbi and discovered that the Spirit of God was in him and that he was blessed with knowledge and insight. He was pleased that such a man had been born on the same day and at the same hour as himself. But he was also envious, for he recognized that the rabbi surpassed him in wisdom and knowledge. He began to boast about his power and strength, his wealth and his assets, and the great kingdom over which he reigned. Indeed, you are a great king, replied the rabbi, rich and powerful, the ruler of a large country. Nonetheless, my power is greater than yours. When I command, my command is fulfilled in the blink of an eye. I will demonstrate this to you now. The rabbi stretched out his arm in the empty room. His lips formed a secret name of God. A mirror appeared floating in the air and came to rest in his hand. Dumbfounded, the king thought he was dreaming. I brought this mirror here from paradise, explained the rabbi. Gaze in it if you will, see wherever or what, however far away it is for you. The king asked to see his capital city and his palace. At once there appeared before his eyes his capital, with all its streets and palaces, its citizens and soldiers. There was the royal palace. In her chamber was the queen, with her red lips and milk-white cheeks and elegant clothes, in the arms of his vizier. When the king saw this, he flew into a murderous rage, but he felt there was nothing he could do. Can I shoot the vizier from here? He asked the rabbi. You can, replied the rabbi. But I am afraid you might miss and hit the queen, who is innocent in this manner. There's nothing to fear. I will hit only the vizier. No harm will befall the queen. The rabbi stretched out his arm and uttered a secret word. In his hand was a candle from paradise. He lit the candle and placed it opposite the king. Shoot the flame. The king did as he was bidden and shot out the flame. In the mirror he saw the vizier fall to the ground, covered with blood. The queen saw the vizier fall, but could not figure out where the shot had come from. Utterly confused, she had no idea what to do or whom to ask for help. Looking out the window that overlooked the garden, she saw the royal confessor hoeing the flower bed. She called him to come up. When he arrived, she told him everything that had happened and asked his advice. "How can I get the vizier's body out of my chamber?" The priests toured the entire palace, trying to figure out where the shot could have come from, but in vain. He returned to the queen. "Tell me the truth. Did you kill him?" "Bare your soul. I swear that no one will ever know." The queen swore by the king's head that she had not a hand in the murder. "I believe you," the priest said. "I'll do everything I can to hide the corpse, but on the condition you must testify along with me that the vizier was kidnapped at the order of the leader of the Jews in the town, and that the Jews then murdered the vizier and concealed his body." The queen, with no other way to escape her predicament, promised the priest she would do as he asked. The priest dragged away the corpse and placed in the wine cellar, where he dug a grave and buried it. The queen cleaned up the blood stain in her chamber and forgot her anxiety. The king was observing the whole scene, sat frozen in front of the mirror. His body trembled in anger and rage. When he stood up, "I must return to the palace at once," he told the rabbi. The rabbi tried to calm him. In the meantime, his wife had set the table again. When they were done eating, the king thanked the rabbi and took his leave. The rabbi asked him to act with wisdom and moderation and to protect the Jews against their persecutors. The king promised that not only would he protect the Jews, he would even improve their lot. The two men embraced. Then the king left the rabbi's house and started home. After several days on the road, the king reached his capital. He found it restive and unsettled, and the incited masses, I didn't know what it said there for a moment. The incited masses were making preparations for an assault on the Jews to avenge the death of the vizier, whom they were supposed to have murdered. The minister informed the king everything that had taken place in the city during his absence. The queen and the priest testified that with their own eyes they had seen the Jews kidnap and murder the vizier and carry off his corpse. It was the king's duty to order that all Jews of the city be massacred and exterminated. The king listened attentively to them. Then, calling for silence, he announced that the next day he would convene a royal council to consider the affair. The council assembled and debated the matter. After all had spoken, the king made himself heard. "My brothers, I have heard what you have said and your proposal to destroy and exterminate the Jews. If we do this, however, we will arouse every country against us. My idea then is to convene the representatives of all countries and inform them of this terrible act done by the Jews. Then, if we punish them, everyone will understand that our vengeance is just." The ministers approved of the king's proposal. At once the king ordered up a royal feast and invited the representatives of all countries. A special invitation was sent to his friend the rabbi, signed by the king's own hand. On the appointed day, all the invited guests joined the king, queen, and ministers of state. When their cups had been filled and they had begun to drink the wine, the rabbi arose and addressed them. This wine is tasteless. Not even servants should be served such wine. The guests were puzzled by the rabbi's protest, for the wine was excellent. The king stared angrily at the priest who was in charge of the wine cellar. The priest ran and brought an even finer vintage with which he filled the rabbi's cup. The rabbi tasted and protested again. Pooh! This is worse than the first wine. The priest began to tremble. He went down to the cellar and brought up a third bottle. This, too, was rejected by the rabbi, who asked the king for permission to go down himself into the cellar to find a good wine. The king consented, but decided to go along to see how the rabbi would select the best wine. He invited all the guests to accompany them and see his well-stocked cellar. When they reached the wine cellar, the rabbi asked whether they smelled a terrible stench. All the company were silent, for none of them smelled anything. The rabbi sniffed here, and he sniffed there, as if he were searching for the best wine. Suddenly he stood still. Now you'll see where the bad odor is coming from, he said. The rabbi pointed to the spot in the floor and said they should dig there and clean it up, or the wine, all the wine in the cellar would spoil. The king's servants were called. They dug where the rabbi pointed and found the vizier's body. The entire company was shocked. In a rage, the king turned to the priest. Who buried the vizier here? Why did you say the Jews had kidnapped and murdered him? The priest started to shudder uncontrollably. Deprived of speech, he collapsed in a faint on the floor. They picked him up and carried him to the palace to revive him. In the meantime, the king turned to the queen and demanded she explain why she had testified falsely. The queen asked the king to release her from her oath that she had sworn on her own life to keep the secret. When this was granted, she told him everything that happened. When the priest regained consciousness, he told the king the whole truth. The court sentenced him to hang. A royal herald circulated through the town, announcing that the guilty party in the death of the vizier had been found and that the Jews were innocent. The king promoted the rabbi and seated him at his right hand. The Jews enjoyed light and gladness. Thus may the Master of the universe redeem us and shower us with abundance and peace. 3 apples fell from the tree. 1 apple was given to the storyteller, the second to Aharon ben Avraham, and the 3rd apple for me, of course. And that, my friends, is the end of our stories for this evening. I hope you enjoyed them. Don't forget, tomorrow night is the Rabbi's Discuss. You're going to want to be in here because it's all about elections. So you want to be here. And that's 8 p.m. Eastern for daylight savings or whatever the heck time it is now. Anyway, and then on Wednesday is the Torah study in depth at 8 p.m. And then on Friday is Kabbalat and Mariv, the Shabbat service. And on Shabbat at 10 a.m. Eastern is Shachrit and Musaf. Until the next time, we simply say, Laila Tov.